You're listening to the Rogers Waterfowl podcast. This is Aaron Jones.
Chandler Smith here. Let's talk some waterfowl.
You know, back in the mid-'80s, I got my first Chesapeake Bay Retriever that a co-worker had given me. And that particular dog had not been socialized correctly and just basically raised in the backyard. It wasn't really good candy. And anyway, I sent it to a trainer and had it with a trainer, and it didn't work out too well for either one of us. And so I got another dog, and I got started from scratch with it. And, she did really well for me and trained, just ABC 1, 2, 3. And, I just really enjoyed doing that. And then from that point, I had a job where I covered all of East Arkansas as a sales rep for an aluminum window company out of Memphis. And I called on lumber companies, and as I went across the state, I carried the dog with me every day. There wasn't any cell phones or Facebook or anything like that to spend time with, so I had my dog with me for companionship, if you know what I mean. And as I covered East Arkansas, I basically went in lumber companies, and before long, she started going into every account I had. I was calling on a lot of mom and pop lumber companies back then. It wasn't all Lowe's and Home Depots kind of back then. It was, Baker Hardware and, Forest City Lumber and stuff like that, where I could carry the dog in with me. And man, when I carried her in, we had everybody's attention and had the whole show, and really brought me a lot of attention, which brought me a lot of sales through the years. But what it also led to was people saying, "Man, I want you to train me one like that." And also, let's find you a puppy. And so I'd find them a puppy, and then I'd train it for them, and then I'd send it home, and then they had two buddies, and they wanted to have their dogs trained, and I trained their two buddies' dogs, and those guys had two buddies, and next thing you know, I looked up and I was in the dog training business. So it just kind of all happened by accident. And I'm sitting right here in the middle of duck capital of the world, where we are right here. It's just, you can't throw a baseball out hitting a duck pit. It's just amazing. We're sitting right here in the middle of duck, and back then I was training for all local people. Now, there's people from all over the United States. There's a lot of duck hunting right here in my backyard, so that really helped the whole equation a ton, of course, But that kind of put me in business by accident, and it's been real good to me ever since.
Absolutely. For those of you just joining us, we're talking with Chris Atkin today, and we've got Chandler.
Yep.
Houston.
How's it going?
Yep, he's our dog products buyer, and then, of course, Aaron here. Again, we appreciate you working with us today, Chris. Now, I know you said you had some crazy wicked thunderstorms rolling through here today and currently, so hopefully we don't lose you via internet, but if so, we'll just give you a buzz back. So who all are you affiliated with now, Chris? I know there's several different companies that you work closely with.
I do. Avery and Sport Dog are the main two, and I've been with them for a long time. I've actually been with Sport Dog since 2003, and I've been with Avery probably since 2000. So I've been doing stuff for them, and so those are the two companies that I've helped, with product design and development, and just a little bit of marketing and that kind of stuff to get all of us to the point we are today.
Sure. And of course, we carry a full line of those products in our store, and I know, Houston, you're all the time ordering those. We go through those products like crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
High-end stuff. So I know we've got a list of questions we wanted to get to today. While you were gracious enough to break away from your busy training schedule, I know now I'm sure you've got dogs galore. How many dogs are you currently training right now?
We keep a little less than 100 at a time, and we've got about that right now. We've got a ton going home this week. I think we sent home 3 this morning. Our dove season opens here on Saturday morning, and so does Missouri, and so everybody's excited, picking their dogs up for the weekend or a little bit for dove season and teal season. So we've got a lot of them going home. So we'll go down a little bit before the week's out, but all those dogs will be going out of here to have some fun for a while.
Absolutely. Now, you said 100, correct? A little
Correct.
Less than 100? Okay, I'm glad I was sitting down for that. Good grief. That keeps you busy, man.
Oh, yeah, it does. We've we've got a large kennel, and we've got a lot of people, working for us, and a lot of equipment, and it works well though. We've been doing it like that for a long time now. So we got it. It's kind of like a factory. We've got the puppies. We've got the young dogs are going through obedience and force fetch and steady singles and doubles, and we got guys that do transition, and then we've got the upper level truck, which I hold those for myself, and I can keep those. And so I personally handle 27 a day, and every day. And so like this morning, I ran those guys on water blinds, and we're going to do some marks on them this afternoon. So yeah.
Yeah, and Houston, you have how many dogs that you are working with?
I'm working with one dog. Right
How would you like 24 more?
I would not. One dog is a handful for me. So.
No kidding. So, Houston, what were some of the questions that you had put down that you wanted to get to? I know, like when you got your dog, how old is he now?
He's a year and a half right now.
Okay. And was he a puppy? Was he a started dog?
Nope. I got him as a started dog when he was 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been just through force fetch is kind of where he stopped when I, got him. But I've had a fun time training him up. From then on, I watched Duck Dog Basics, which Chris is actually involved with and produced. But there's a lot of others, internet resources, YouTube videos, all different kinds of training, tools that I had to use to move forward. And I still have tons of work to do. You're never done training a dog. So that was something that I finally started to enjoy. I was just learning my dog personally and what I needed to do to make him work, not necessarily what everybody did for their dogs. So
sure.
That was the fun part of it.
Now, Chris, what would you recommend when someone wants to start looking for a dog? Should they search for a puppy, a started dog, a finished dog, or what are the things they really need to take into consideration looking into that?
A lot of it depends on your time and your family and all that kind of stuff, and then a lot of that depends on your budget as well, because everything comes with a different price tag. The puppies, those puppies you can get, most people pick them up at 7 or 8 weeks old, 9 weeks old. And, they're a lot of fun, but they're a lot of work. There's the potty training and, and all the teething and chewing up everything and all that. And then not knowing the unknown with that puppy as far as does it have retrieving desire? Is it going to like the water? Is it going to like birds? Is it going to mind the gun? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs in the puppy world that they're a huge gamble. For those people that understand the game and know what they're getting into. A lot of people will look for a started dog, kind of like Houston did. It gives you a little bit more insight on what you're buying and what you're purchasing, because by that time you can see their looks, which is so important to people. You can see their style, very important thing, and then you can just see their attitude towards training. If they're trainable. What they're going to think about birds, what they're going to do with the gun, water, all those type of things. And like you take a little dog that's had a couple months of training, kind of like Houston did. I mean, your risk is at an all-time low right there, because you've got all that figured out. I tell a horrible analogy. I say it's kind of like picking out your wife when she's 3 years old versus when she's 23. There's a heck of a lot of risk on both of them, but there's a lot more as a 3-year-old because you're getting exactly what you get no matter what with a puppy. That's kind of like picking out your wife when she's 3 years old. If she comes out with a lot of issues there and that you may not appreciate, that's kind of the same thing as the puppy, so it's a little bit of a gamble. So, finished dog is a whole nother animal. Those things come with high price tags, and they're not for everybody. Just the sticker shock of those things is pretty, but they're usually a lot cheaper than what you would pay if you had to pay out, like for me, for training, what you'd have to pay in the long run. We sold one this morning, a very, very nice dog, a master level dog. Dog even had, I think, 2 fourths and a qualifyings. Very nice dog, 2 years old. They had a lot more invested in that dog than what she sold for this morning. Mm-hmm. But the gentleman that bought her was in his mid-70s. He really didn't want to try to wait out the puppy deal. So he, what I call instant gratification, he just bought him a trained killer, and he's going to be in the dove field with her Saturday morning. So a little bit of instant gratification, and which is nothing wrong with that. We sell a lot of those type dogs. So it's just all what your checkbook can afford, and kind of what you like. A lot of people love the thrill of the puppy thing. I've got a new puppy right now myself, and I'm having a blast with him. It's probably my most favorite dog to train every day right now because you see so much growth every day. You see him absorbing it, and it's so much fun to watch that in a puppy. And you do miss all that if you do buy a season level or a finish level dog. So there's pros and cons to all of it.
Sure, and I definitely get that, and I think maybe I'm weird, but I've worked with not necessarily training dogs on any sort of waterfowl level like to what you do, but just training dogs in general that they're very much they have expressions, I wouldn't say similar to humans, but when a dog is learning something and they finally grasp something, you can almost see it, and then they get excited about their learning what you have been trying to teach them, and it is fun to watch them grow, exactly just like what you said. I'm sure, Houston, you've seen that with your dog Preacher, that he starts getting the hang of things, and you can see his excitement level increase.
Oh yeah, especially when you're giving them praise, they get really excited to see you happy. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that feedback and that interaction is it's fun. It's part of the growing process.
Yeah, Chris, and I know you said that 7-8 weeks is what people are looking at for a puppy. How about you just tell some people what kind of ages they're looking at for a started dog or a finished dog, or if age matters?
I'll kind of break it down on what my opinion of each one of those is and what the levels are. To me, a started dog is a dog that's been through obedience. It's been through an evaluation on retrieving land and water, birds and bumpers. It's also been shot around. The dog's been force fetched, where he's taught to fetch, hold, and leave on command, deliver to hand. A dog is steady, which means he stays while we're throwing the retrieves or while we're shooting the birds. He'll do some little concept marks like a first base, third base kind of mark. Just learning, some basic multiples that'll come handy in the field. This same dog's been worked on some dog stands and maybe a ground blind. He's been worked out of a pit, with birds, with decoys, all the important elements of a duck hunt. Now, to me, I don't start my formal training process till they're 6 months old. So obviously that dog, our program is 4 months long and go through the gun dog program. So that dog's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 months old for a started dog. I've got 2 for sale right now, a black female and a yellow male. They're both 11 months old apiece and very nice dogs, and they've been through that process now. So, you can see everything you need to see about the dog. The trainability, the style, desire, you know what they're going to look like. So it's right, it's all right in front of you. There's nothing there in the unknown. So that's what I call a started dog. Now, as we progress from there, we have a season level dog, I call it. And that dog has learned to do basic casting, send out on command, stop with a whistle and cast right, left, or straight back. And the dog's also learned to do the same thing in the water, where he'll go out, stop, float, turn around, look at you, cast right, left, or straight back. The same dog will leave on command and run some simple blind retrieves out to 100, 200 yards. Where you're sending him out where he doesn't know where he's going, you can stop him with a whistle and give him angle cast and fight the factors in order to get to the bird, whether it's rice levies or hills or cover or wind or whatever, in a pretty unpolished manner. I mean, it may take 5 or 6 whistles to get to 200 yards, depending on the factors and the dog. But a pretty rough version of a finished dog is all a seasoned dog really is. The only difference in a finished dog, a seasoned dog, and a finished dog is really just a little bit of age and some experience. Just them learning how to go through old falls and just tighter marks, tighter blinds. What I mean is closer together, where there's not as many factors or more factors, whether you go with a seasoned dog or a finished dog. So usually your seasoned dogs, that dog's had a total of about 9 months of training. We don't start until they're 6 months old, so you're looking at 15, 16, 18 months. A finished dog, it would just be a couple more, 3 or 4 months more of training to really polish it up, So like I said, I guess that's the word is a finished dog just has a couple more layers of shellac on it than a seasoned dog does, if you will.
Okay, and that I guess you might have answered this question I had there. You were saying that you start your training at about 6 months. If someone has a dog and they want to send it to training, what age do you recommend they maybe look at that?
6 months is the perfect age for me, and I'll tell you why. You know, as the puppy's going through his puppyhood, when they get to about 4 to 4.5 months old, they start losing all their baby teeth and growing in their adult teeth. At that time, they'll have a low-grade fever. They won't feel all that great, as none of us do when you have a fever. And then on that, they don't really want to carry around rubber bumpers or something hard in their mouth. So as a trainer, you can get a false read on that dog if he was here during the teething process, and you can say, well, he doesn't really like to retrieve. He doesn't quite have the energy we're looking for. He doesn't care anything about retrieving, blah, blah, blah. When in reality, none of that's true. None of it. It's just that he's going through that 2 or 3 week span in there where he's going through that teething process and giving us a completely false evaluation of the personality of that dog. So what I do, I just wait till they're 6 months old. Then I've got all that out of the way. I don't have to worry about it. And so we get them in here at 6 months old. And usually by that time, I'm going to tell you, as a youngster, they're pretty rebellious at that time and pretty independent. The owners are ready for a break. You know, that's when they're letting it out of the house to use the restroom, and it takes off to the neighbor's house, or, you know, it just does what it wants to do at that age. And so it's time for them to come into training at 6 months old. They need some direction and need some training.
Kind of like a teenager. We've all been there. So, yep, it's very familiar sounding. What other questions did you have there, Houston? I know you've got a few.
Yeah, Chris, and I know you mentioned, force fetch was kind of one of the last things you get going on a started dog. You don't have to explain how to do it, but just what that does and why you should do it or shouldn't do it, or what kind of opinion you have on that.
Well, you definitely should do it, and it's actually in the progression of dog training. I call it the second month, not the end. We do the first thing we do is make sure the dog loves to retrieve, land in water, birds and bumpers. Then we do heel, sit, stay, kennel, hear, and no, all on lead. Then we break out the sport dog e-collars, and when we start doing our collar condition, just on heel and hear. But the reason we're using the e-collar is because we want the dog to understand how to turn the pressure on and how to turn the pressure off, okay, with the e-collar, okay? And then once we get that done and everything's looking real good on the obedience, we start throwing some retrieves again for a few days. And as we start throwing retrieves, we start shooting the gun with retrieves. Now, at that point, I'm done with an evaluation process for that dog. Everything there looks good to continue and graduate to the next phase. My next phase is force fetch. Force fetch is basically, we've all had dogs and puppies that go out and retrieve out of the pond. As soon as they get back to the bank's edge, they stop, drop, shake off, and leave the bumper or the bird laying at the bank. Well, that's not what we really would like for a trained dog to do. And because if you've got a cripple and they get back to the bank and they stop and drop the bird and shake off, that bird hits the water again, he's gone. Well, then you just wasted a lot. You wasted the bird, could possibly lose it. The whole retrieve was basically done for nothing. It's just not what we want in a trained dog. So we train the dog to force fetches, to go out, get the bird, come back, spin around the hills, sit out at our side, get in the pit, get in the blind, up the ramp, whatever, and then give us the bird directly in our hand. And so the way we teach that is basically we put a dog on a table, you put it on a tailgate of the truck, in the back of the Ranger, mule, whatever, and you put him up there where you're kind of eye level with him. It's a little easier for the handler. And we literally start putting something in their mouth. Now, I use a piece of dowel rod, if you will, just a 1-inch round wooden piece of wood. It's about 10 inches long. And I put in their mouth, and I just pet and love on them with that thing in their mouth. And that sounds super simple, but it's not. Some dogs really fight it tooth and toenail to get that thing out of their mouth. It's not natural. Well, we get them to the point where we're petting and loving on them and letting them know that's what we want. We take it out of their mouth. We don't pet them. We get it back in their mouth. We pet and love, pet and love, pet and love. And then we take it out. We don't pet at all. And we put it back in there, pet and love, pet and love, pet and love. We do this for about 3 or 4 days, about 10, 15 reps each. And then by you get to the 3rd or 4th day, when you put that thing in front of them, they grab hold of it so that you'll start giving them some attention. I mean, pretty simple concept. Well, then from that point, what we do is we start pinching on their ear. And we put a low pressure on their ear with our thumbnail on the inside pad. Nothing major, just discomfort. That's going to be the word I'm going to use, just a discomfort. And when we do, we roll that dowel rod into their mouth, and then we pat and love, pat and love, pat and love. Well, you do that about 3 or 4 or 5 times on most dogs. Man, as soon as you put that dowel rod anywhere in front of them, they're chomping on that thing as fast as they can, and then that so you don't ever pinch on them. Well, now what we're doing is we're brainwashing that dog to keep something in their mouth. And that's a pretty rough term, brainwashing, but believe me, what we're doing is we're teaching that dog to keep something in their mouth at all times. So then as we continue doing that, we start moving it further and further and further away. Everything in dog training is crawl, walk, run, and I say that term in all my videos 100 times, but it's so true. Everything's got a progression, and everybody asks me, how do you train dogs? I said, I'm progressive repetition. And it's the same way that our baseball coach taught us from the very beginning when we were little leaguers, little bitty guys. Excuse me, they threw the ball through us from 10 feet. They backed up to 15. They backed up to 20. They backed up to 30. They backed up to 40. Well, so everything's progressive, okay? And it's amazing how fast we grew as little leaguers, and it's even faster with a dog. It's amazing how they take all this in like a sponge. Well, before long, we're actually laying that dowel rod down on the tailgate or on the table, and we start to put the word fetch in there, and they'll reach down and grab hold of it so that you don't grab their ear. Well, then as we get to the point they're doing all that on their own, we go to the e-collar, do the same thing, and we get them where they're picking that thing up off the table with low pressure with the collar. When I say lows, I'm talking about 1s and 2s depending on the dog, low pressure and force fetch. But then once you get that done, we put them on the floor. We do the same thing on the floor, and then we go outside and we just start working them on carrying it around their mouth at heel. And then before long, we get them where we're putting them at a position as a sit stay and then calling them to us, spin around the heel, sitting down. And then at that point, we can swap over to a bumper, do all this over with a bumper, which goes real quick. And then we start throwing retrieves and then getting on to them if they drop it when they come back. And that's about a 2-day fix. And now that dog's force prone. And it sounds very complex, and believe me, it can be if you let it be. But as long as somebody understands it's progressive repetition and that nothing's going to be built overnight, it's a very simple procedure. All you got to know is what the end product looks like and where to start, and the rest of it fills itself in with the dog. So it's very, everybody's like, I think they're hitting a button to send something to the outer space. Man, you're not doing that. It's a very simple procedure. You just got to understand it's not going to happen overnight. Take your time with it and just make it a progressive repetition, crawl, walk, run.
Right, and I think that's the hardest thing for most people is they want to get out there and just see their dog, do it right as quickly as possible. And I think, everyone needs to understand that they're just like kids. You're teaching it for the first time. You got to teach it over and over and over before, they finally understand it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Sure. And I do have another question. So let's say somebody has a puppy or even a started dog, and they want to keep training it some more. What are some necessary pieces of equipment that you would recommend that anybody who's going to do some training that they have?
Well, when somebody gets a puppy or a started dog, it's real simple. I mean, you're going to need if you get a puppy, I would suggest get a check cord first thing, which is a 30-foot. Usually floating rope. Avery has a great one. It's in bright orange. You can see it. It lasts forever. I've got some I've had for 15 years. And, that way you got some control over the puppy. You're going to need a flat collar, to go around the dog's neck. You're going to need some bumpers. And bumpers are a big topic for me when I talk about it. Everybody buys bumpers. They want to go buy orange ones. And they buy orange ones so they can see them and the dog can see them. Well, in reality, dogs' eyes are just like white-tailed deer. They have a hard time seeing orange. So when you guys go out to buy bumpers, get black or get white and black. And the black and white are my favorite because like today we have real high clouds. We got super white clouds. And when you throw one, if you throw it, over the treetops like we do every day, they're going to lose it if it's solid white, if that makes sense. Then when it comes down in the tree line, the black's going to disappear and the white's going to show up. So you get the best of both worlds when you get the black and white. Avery's got a great one. It's striped and it's even got a black and white rope on it. But there's a lot of contrast no matter where you're at. But the orange bumpers are made and designed for blind retrieve work, yard work, what we call land tee and water tee, all the kind of stuff where we don't need the dogs to physically see it until they're very close to it. So that orange is reserved for upper level stuff. The lower level stuff is definitely white, black, and white. The other thing that you may want to get is a whistle. I'm a big fan of using a whistle. Here in Arkansas, we hunt out of rice fields, and a lot of times these birds sail a long ways out in these rice fields, and the dogs get out there and get in the heat of the moment, the chase. They pick up the duck, and here we are in the ground in a pit, the hung sticking out to our head, and they grab the duck, and they turn around like, where the heck was I, And a whistle's a big help at that point when that dog's out there 200 or 300 yards to be able to find you and get back to you with the wind and all that kind of stuff. So we train it with a whistle from the very beginning just so they're used to that. So we don't want anybody losing their dog while they're out on a hunt. So we like the whistle. So, basically past that, until you get through obedience, that's really all you need. And then if you're going to, get into the e-collar past that, and that's really all you got to have. Now, some of the upper level training, you'll need multiple bumpers to do that, to do some training. But, even then, a guy could get away with 15 bumpers and have all he needed for the rest of his life, for the dog's career.
Right, and on the bumpers, how many would you suggest that people buy at first? You start with just a few?
Yeah, started dog stuff. You get two or three. I like the 2-inch hexa bumpers. The black and white ones is what I would get. And if I had a dog that did, some three-handed cast or a land tee, I would get probably up to 14 orange bumpers just to do some advanced drill work stuff. But that's really all you need. Honestly, it's a very inexpensive sport to get into as far as equipment.
Gotcha. Okay, so moving on, the next thing big that I would like to talk about would be nutrition. Obviously, you're feeding them food, once or twice a day. I feed twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. And then during season, are you ramping the food up? Are you giving them supplements? What kind of nutrition and health type stuff are you focusing on with your dogs?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I believe in feeding once a day. And I live in Arkansas, so we have some pretty warm summers down here. And any time that you feed a dog food, or you and I take on food, the body has to break that down. And when the body breaks it down, believe it or not, our body temperature actually rises. So if I raise a dog's temperature in my setting 1 or 2 or 3 degrees, and then I go out there and work that dog, I could potentially put that dog in danger of having a heat stroke. So I have asked numerous vets, including vets in very high places with dog food companies, and they all agree with me now. It used to, it was different, but now they all believe that once a day is the best thing. And I feed in the evenings. In that way, they're at their coolest time of the day, so that their body can amp up in temperature a little bit and still be fine. So as far as on a daily routine, we feed once a day. I guess it's a long story short. As far as during hunting season, a lot of people that do a lot of work with their dog, whether they're up on hunting or they're in high volume killing, goose and duck, whatever, that dog's going to need some extra calories. Just common sense tells you that, and we all, unfortunately, we do a lot of cooking while we're hunting, and our dogs always seem to end up with a cinnamon roll or some. I'm not bet no vet's going to agree with me on that. That's the best way to do it, but I'm going to tell you this. Well, we just need some calories put back in that dog. He's out there working his absolute butt off while we're all standing in one place, eating everything we get out of our blind bag and off the grill. And while they're out there working their butt off, and they're on the outside of the blind, getting cold, and the wind's hitting them, and they're soaking wet. They got a lot of reasons to need calories, so don't neglect your dog during a hunt. And, bread, donuts, any of that kind of stuff, it's huge on for a dog as far as calories and sugars to put something back in them. So it's not as fun as some people would do with a power bar or something like that, but it's just as effective, I promise you.
Okay,
Whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, so the next thing would be, so for me and anybody else, I got a dog here, in January, and I've been working on him a little bit. By no means, ready for season, but what kind of, preparation would you recommend for, right before season, and specifically during the first few hunts that the dog has ever had? What do you recommend that we look for? Or I've heard to not even hunt, put your gun down and focus on the dog. What do you recommend in that aspect?
Now that was kind of a two-part question. The main thing is we got to be sure that the dog is trained far enough along to actually go on a hunt. And so as long as that dog's obedience is there, the force fetch is there. You know, he's steadied a shot. He's been shot around. He's picked up birds. He's been through the decoys. And you've had some time to put him in what I call a hunting environment. You know, I love for our clients to carry their dogs out to the duck blind while they're, you know, working on their brushing their blinds or working on their blinds. Say it's got a dog ramp out the front, you know, a dog box on the side of it, or they're going to hunt off like a boomer stand or whatever, and work that dog in that environment, if you know what I'm saying. If there's going to be, you know, boats getting you out there, or rangers or Argos or whatever, you know, put your dog in those type of vehicles prior to season, because you think about it, all this training we do is basically in the backyard and, you know, down in the buddy's pasture and that kind of stuff, and everything's in broad daylight, and it's just us being there, and it's pretty simple, simplistic stuff. Now we're going to get up before daylight, we're going to chunk them in a boat and run down the river 5 miles at 70 mile an hour, and we're going to, you know, with Q-beams and 8 people, and we're going to get out and go out here in the timber in the dark. I mean, that is big, tough. That's a completely different animal than what that dog's been trained to do. And so anything you can do to marry those two from the backyard to the hunt, I think you need to do prior to season. So, you know, just make sure your dog's actually prepared for the job, and if it's had any introduction to the style that you hunt, whether you're using layout blinds, you're using pits, you're using a blind with dog boxes on the side of it with ramps down it like we do, that dog needs to be introduced to all that prior to season or prior to his first hunt. Now, as far as the first hunt, that's a huge topic here right now, seeing the dove season's opening up this Saturday. But, you know, the main thing with dove hunting a dog or duck hunting a dog for the first time, I'm like, man, go with 1, 2, 3 people max. You don't need a crowd the first time your dog goes hunting. You're going to have 8, 9, 10 guys jump up with 3.5-inch shotguns with angle-ported barrels and in the dark, and the dog doesn't have any idea what's fixing to happen. There's no way to prepare that dog for that. So don't put him in that position the first few times he goes hunting, or you could possibly run that dog for the rest of his life. You know, carry that dog out there with just 1 or 2, 3 people max. Make sure that whoever the dog, you know, you're the dog handler. Man, leave your gun in the case the first few volleys. Keep the dog on leash from the time you get out of the truck to the time you put him back in the truck. Keep him under full control. It'll make your life so much easier for the next 10 years. And you know, make sure that he can't break. We hunt in the timber every day, so what we do, we actually have a leash. We just wrap around the tree, and then we hook it to the dog. And if he breaks off the dog stand, well, then he can't go anywhere. He's going to go about a foot, and he's going to stop right there. And so he can't get in harm's way in front of shotguns, or he can't mess up the hunt. So make sure that the dog is, the first few hunts, the dog can see everything that's going on. You know, make sure he's out of the elements. If it's pouring down, raining or snowing or whatever, make sure he's out of that. I mean, you got to remember, this is his opening act. He needs to enjoy it. He needs to have a good time. And he doesn't need to be scared from it. He doesn't need to be miserable from it. A lot of people will carry their dogs out there and make them stand in the water a foot deep. And he's a Labrador retriever. He's supposed to do this. He's tough. You know, they're going to ruin the dog from even wanting to go hunting. And all those are things that you really got to watch for. Too many people, the elements are too bad. I mean, we've had even days here in Arkansas where opening day is got 2 inches of ice on the water. That's insanity to carry a dog on his first hunt like that. You know, make sure the dog can see everything and make sure that everybody there understands that, guys, we're here for the dog today as much as we are ourselves, and we're going to be doing a little bit of dog training today as much as we're going to be hunting. It's amazing when you come back the next day how much better a dog you end up with, because at that point, you're not worried about the killing. You're not worried about the working of the birds. You're worried about dog training, and that's what makes them a better dog. And then everybody's basically content with the hunts over and all that. We can focus on the dog 100%. It just makes them so much better of a dog. And what's unbelievable about a hunting dog and a family pet companion is to watch that dog's light bulb come on. It may not be during the first hunt. It may not be during the second. But, man, some dogs it happens in one duck. Some of it happens on the 50th duck. But it's amazing to watch that light bulb come on and goes, I see what we're doing, and this is the coolest thing there ever was. And then at that point in time, you got something to enjoy for the next 10, 12 years. And that's when all of it becomes worth it, and all the shoes that were chewed up and the patio furniture and the garden all becomes worth it. Anyway, so that's kind of the deal there. So, rehearse the hunt, after the hunt, and even before the hunt, if you can, the day or two or three or four, whatever you can do. It just makes it all go so much smoother on the dog.
Yeah, and while you were talking about all that, I guess a few questions popped in my head. The first one would be, common, I don't want to say issues, but, problems that you see arise with the dogs on their first hunt, whether it be whining or wanting to break. How do you correct that, like, during the hunt?
Well, the main thing that people complain about with dogs that are on their first few hunts is the dog not watching the sky. There's nothing you and I can do to fix that except for kill a lot more birds. And, at that point in time, the dog does not know they're coming out of the sky. There's nothing you and I can do to get the dog looking out. It's just going to come with time. So just be patient. Just put the dog where he can see everything. And in due time, he'll figure that out within just 2 or 3 hunts. The next thing is the dog actually not doing multiples. When we're training in the field or at home, we don't have out 300 of the finest looking decoys there was on the planet, and we've got out a dozen, and so a lot of these dogs have trouble finding the ducks and the decoys because these decoys today. I mean, you've seen these new XDs and man, all these fully flock. I mean, these decoys today are so much more incredible than what I grew up with. It's unbelievable, which makes the dog work a lot harder. So you got to be patient with it. I tell people, especially on started dogs, Houston, that dog you've got, man, I tell people all the time, I call it hillbilly hand signals. The first few hunts, I may go out there with some rocks and in my pocket or in a bag full, and if they can't find that duck out there, you look at it, you say you kill 3 ducks out of a group. They run out there and get the first one. They come back like they won the Super Bowl, and they think they're done. We got 2 more greenheads laying out here. They're not looking out. They're not going to look out. They're not that far along in training, whatever. Just take you a rock, throw out there where it is, send them. They don't know the difference. The dog run right out there, pick it up. Man, he comes back, same thing. He thinks he won the Super Bowl again. You just, hey, no big deal. He won't look out. Just throw another rock out there where the other duck is and send him. And what you'll be amazed at in just 2 or 3 days, they'll get optimistic about their birds being out there, and you'll be able to send them as many times as you want. I know that sounds kind of Arkansas hillbilly style, but I'm telling you it works. And there's been a mini rock thrown in a rice field down here trying to help a young dog figure out what he's supposed to do. And so, and I got to tell everybody, one pocket with a started dog, you may need a few rocks. Another pocket, you need a handful of mulligans. And because you're going to need some mulligans on the first few hunts on these dogs, so just be patient. And then make sure you got the right group of people with you that they can be patient and overlook some things, and you'll be fine. But you brought up that whining. When I dogs, I never ever heard of a dog whining in a hunt. Now it's a topic every single day of duck season. Somebody's calling me from across the United States, people I've trained for, people I've never met. People just found me on the internet and they're trying to get some help. And the story always starts out about how great their dog is, and their dog can do everything, including driving a Ranger and fixing out the motor. But you always know Butt's coming. And here comes Butt. And Butt, he whines during the hunt. Or even worse, he barks during the hunt. Well, let me tell you, there's no proven method at this point that fixes any of that. There's lots of things you can try. And then I have curbed it, I have reduced it, but I've never fixed it. And so once a dog ever does that the first time, you need to let that dog know that that's not what you want to see, that's not what you want to hear, and either verbally or physically let that dog know in whatever manner you think that dog needs to get that point across. That don't do it, because if you let the dog get away with it very many hunts, it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Right, and that's something I've noticed, not necessarily during a hunt. I've never had him hunting, but, I'll put him up on the, the stand in the kitchen, and he'll be there for 30 minutes without making a sound, and then all of a sudden he'll just start whining. I've told him quiet. I've kind of got that into his head what that means, because he's starting to get vocal after time. It's not necessarily right at the start of training him, or I've never had him do it while training outside with bumpers. It's only when he's been sitting in one place for too long.
Well, in Houston, I don't know about where you hunt, but I mean, we sit there's a lot of days we may not kill a duck till 9 o'clock, and then from 9 to 10:30 is the prime time. And so that dog's sitting there 6:45 in the morning till 9 o'clock. So you're putting that dog in a position to whine at 9 o'clock. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so you've got a candidate to do that, but just be pre-warned that as soon as you see it, or as soon as you hear it, you need to be addressing it. And I don't mean let it slide because your wife's dad's there. I mean, it doesn't matter. You got to make a scene about it, whatever you got to do to fix it. Because I'm gonna tell you, there is nothing worse. There is nothing more miserable than being a hunt and have to listen to that. And your buddies aren't gonna like it. And you want your hunting buddies to want you to go hunting because of your dog, not want you to go hunting because of your dog.
Right.
And so it's a huge topic. I'm telling you. And all trainers have a different theory of how to fix it, and nobody's fixed it yet. We've all just curbed it. And I've heard of lemon juice in their mouth. I've heard of, applying pressure with an e-collar. I've heard of applying pressure with a healing stick. And I've tried them all. I've done everything. I've used Tabasco sauce. We've used lemon juice, all the silly stuff you hear, but you're just trying something. And none of it really works. I'm just going to tell everybody, nothing really works. You just got to be consistent and more hard-headed than the dog.
Sure.
And at that one time, and a lot of people say, don't let that dog retrieve the birds if he whines. That's probably the best advice that there is out there, is to don't reward the dog for whining by letting him do what he wants to do anyway. And so that's probably the best advice I have, and it's probably the most unused advice, because if everybody's out there hunting, none of the people want to see somebody walk out there and get a duck at 100 yards when they can just send their dog out there to get it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, and that's another thing I've heard, was to just put your dog up. You got a kennel in your truck, go take your dog back to the truck and don't let him hunt that morning.
Man, it is the only way to go. And there's some things that we're trying right now to try to help it. That just because it's anxiety. That's what I think it's all is anxiety. And I'm gonna tell you, I think it's the believe it or not, I think it's the breeding is what's causing that. And everybody says, well, you're a breeder. Well, yeah, I'm a huge breeder. We have puppies all the time, and we use our dogs all the time. We dang sure don't breed a dog that whines. If a dog whines, I don't care how good he is. I don't care if he can do arithmetic. He's not getting bred. That's not going to happen. And so we've got to breed that out as well. I mean, because, man, it's just we're breeding it in. With the power of the internet, Facebook, everything else, people have a lot more options of how to get well. And your well-bred puppies are usually dogs that have got all the titles. And a lot of the field trial dogs, especially, I mean, if anybody's been to what I call a white coat field trial, the average retriever in that thing's probably 350 yards long. And, you consider doing a triple or a quad at 300 to 500, 600 yards long. Well, you've got to be a little bit crazy to do that anyway as a dog, okay? So a lot of the dogs I see that are doing the whining are coming from the field trial breedings, and everybody's going to say, oh, boy, he's setting himself up for people to bash him here. Well, it's just the facts. I mean, you don't see a lot of the whining coming from the hunt test dogs. You don't see a lot of whining coming from the hunting dogs. You see them coming from the field trials. And it's all because the field trials have gotten so difficult. The distances are so incredible. The marks have gotten so tight. It takes a dog just right on edge a lot of times, or, really a very high driven dog to compete at that level, which that's drive and whining go hand in hand, almost every time. So be careful what you get. I tell everybody when they're buying puppies, make sure that you're buying puppies out of a dog that you'd like to own. And if you can't say that, you probably don't need to buy a puppy out of it. So, because, let's face it, genetics is everything in the dog world.
Yeah, and I guess while you're talking about that, you talked about crazy. I believe my dog came out of quite a few, field trials champions rather than hunt test, champions, and he's crazy. I mean, he has got the hardest drive I've ever seen. He blows past bumpers 30 yards and then comes back and picks them up. And so I guess specifically, not necessarily while I'm training him, but just in general, he is super wild. What do you do? I get home in the evening and he's so excited to see me, and I have him sit Well, his excitement is so overgrown that he just slides around and turns in circles, and it's hard to get him to sit. But as soon as I take him outside, he's a completely different dog. How do you make sure that he's obeying the same inside the house as while you're training?
Well, him obeying what you're doing is the level of distraction is at its high. I mean, he's excited to see you. He hadn't done anything all day long. You come in the house and you're a little bit excited to see him, and you don't want to be ugly to him. But let's face it, what's happened is you're letting some things go because you have somebody there that's excited to see you. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to see somebody that says, "Oh man, there's Houston, he's my best friend," and you go, "Hey, you sit down, don't you move, don't you do," that's all kind of crazy. So we let a lot of that stuff slide, but in reality, Houston, believe it or not, a lot of that's your own fault because you
Right.
make your mind when you're outside. You're just excited to see him as he is you when you come home. So that's just going to kind of be y'all's two little thing in the house until you decide you want to do a little different. Now, so we'll tell you, if you will get control of that for just a week-long period, then he will mind you in the house that way, and he won't act like that when you come in, and then you can enjoy that for the next 10 or 15 years. But you have some pretty big, you got to roll your sleeves up and really get your head wrapped around that, that you're going to probably dampen what you have today, the excitement he has in you. You enjoy that as a person. I think anybody does. I promise you, my wife doesn't do that when I come in the door. I mean, she's not in circles excited to see me when I come in, and my dog is. So I'm putting up with that because I'm glad somebody wants to see me when I come in.
Right,
so,
right.
So I think that we put up a little bit more than probably what we should.
Yeah, so would that be something you recommend? You just walk in the house and you just kind of let him do that? Don't give him a command. That way you don't give him the option to disobey it?
I just think if you're going to give a command, you better be ready to back it up.
Right.
If you're not ready to back it up, then don't give it. I mean, I can tell you, a dog's not doing anything wrong if you haven't told him to do anything.
Yep.
So until you give that command, hey, it's free game. You know what I mean? Now, you saying sit 5 times, him not doing it because he's excited, now we got a huge problem.
Sure.
So, and it's, I mean, we all have different ideas of what trained is, and we all have ideas of what we enjoy and what we don't. So to each his own on that deal. I mean, I've got 5 dogs in the house, and I promise you, when I walk in, all 5 of them are jacked up, just curious to see me, and they're all starving. They're all jealous of other dogs. So I got to get right here and be with those 5 dogs for about 20 minutes before I can even do anything else in my house. And as a dog trainer, that probably looks pretty silly. But you know what? I love those dogs. They're all retired hunt test dogs. Got all the titles. And that's just one of my things of the day.
Sure.
That kind of leads me into a question, actually. Is having a hunting dog as a house pet, do those go hand in hand? Should they be kind of separated? What's your thoughts on that? I know you said you've got 5 in the house. Are those your active hunting dogs? Do you think, they can be a member of the family? Do they need to be kept outside?
Let me I'll put it to you real direct. Any great hunting dog is a house dog. And here's why. A dog that's with you 24 hours a day is going to be better in the duck blind than a dog that's in chain link and concrete 24 hours a day. There's no way around it. I mean, I can walk in my house and have a horrible day, and my dogs will all just go their own different direction. Not having said a word. I can have a great day walking the house, and all of them will be all over me. They can look at my eyes. They can look at my face. They know exactly. A dog in chain link and concrete cannot do that. No way. And so all the great hunting dogs that I'm experienced with, I've hunted with, I've seen, they're backseat dogs, they're in the house dogs, and they're in the lodge dogs. And that's just the way the good dogs are. And there's no way around it. Now, when I first started training dogs, nobody believed you could have a hunting dog and a pet. My dogs go with me 24 hours a day. My personal hunting dog now is a dog named Finn. He's a grand champion. He's a master hunter. He's AKC Hall of Fame dog. He's qualified all age. He's got all the hunt test titles you can get and did it all extremely young. He's 5 years old. He's laying here underneath my feet right now. And he's with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's how you have a great dog. And it just makes your training better, it makes your hunt better, and it makes your life better. You ask me.
Okay, well, we're going to use your answer to petition the boss here to let Houston bring his dog to work every day.
Yeah, great dogs. I'll tell you, I've been in a lot of sporting goods stores, and I've been in a lot of hunting businesses, and there's always dogs in there, and I can't imagine anybody not enjoying having that in that setting. And if it doesn't work, just tell them you got an anxiety problem and you got to have your dog with you. That seems to work in the day.
There you go.
You're not wrong there. I do have another. We were talking about you were talking about feeding the dogs and the safety of them regulating the temperature. Speaking about that, what about during the season on those cold weather hunts, or if you do have an upland dog and it's unseasonably hot and you're really working those dogs, what are some cold weather hunt or hot weather hunt safety tips or things that people ought to be considering? Just because, like you said, they're in the house, they're a member of the family, their safety is just as important as anybody else in the family. What are some things you recommend for cold or hot weather safety?
The hot weather deal concerns me more than the cold weather does. And I remember I'm from Arkansas, so that's we don't have as cold weather as what a lot of people have. But heat is where a lot of dogs get in trouble, especially with this dove season coming up. Dogs been laying on the couch, they've been in the back seat, they've been enjoying the office. They haven't been real physical since duck season, and now we're going to take them out and put them in a field that's usually extremely dry conditions, high humidity. And start working them to death in high cover, and that's a bad combination. And so people will overheat their dogs, let them do their job, and letting them get their birds. And I'm like, well, I only need 2 more, and I'm done. I'm gonna go ahead and kill these last 2, and I'm gonna get him to the truck. Next thing you know, we got the dog overheated. Dogs run a temperature of 105, 106 degrees. Next thing you know, he's got liver failure and kidney failure, and he's no longer with us. So you've got to be extremely careful, carry lots of fluids, make sure you're in the shade. Remember, you're standing in one place looking cool with your favorite 20 gauge while your buddy's out there running around working his butt off. So keep that dog plenty of liquids in the shade, and just keep watching that tongue. When that tongue goes, it's going to get wide first, and they're trying to get more air when that happens. When that thing comes to the side, I'm done. I am done at that point in time. And there's no dove, there's no duck, and there's no goose worth killing a dog over. So be careful, be very careful with those dogs. As far as the cold goes, down here I regulate everything by the ice. If I've got ice out there over, say, 3/4 of an inch thick, I'm not carrying a dog. And it becomes a health issue more to their body than it does them getting too cold. Everybody's today's world, they got ways of warming their dog up where they put their favorite hunting coat on them. They bring them in the blind. They put them in the boat with a heater, whatever. They can warm that dog up, but I'm more worried about the physical side of that dog getting cut up or tore up by the ice than I am anything. Because that's scary stuff, because our dogs don't know how to take care of themselves. None of my dogs know how to take care of themselves. They're going to go, their heart, their desire, their brain is rigged and bred to go. And that's the way the good ones are. And so it's got to be our job to take care of them. That's what we're put here to do, is to take care of them, because they're not going to take care of themselves.
Sure. And when do you recommend that someone looks into getting a dog vest, whether it be, an uninsulated one or, a 5mm one? When should somebody look into getting one of those? You like the Avery, boater's parka?
I love dogs. I think every dog's different. I mean, when I'm during a duck hunt, I'm bundled up over there like I'm in the Antarctica, and my buddy over there is wearing a vest. You know what I mean? And he's not even cold. So every dog's different. But if I see a dog look cold, you can tell when a dog is cold. His muscles in his head are starting to kind of contract out. He's maybe shaking a little bit. He's kind of tensing up. Those dogs, you put a vest on them, it really helps them a ton. It just holds that body heat in there better, and it warms that water up in there and warms them up, and it really makes them be able to hunt longer and not burn nearly as many calories. But every dog's different on that. And you get some dogs that are very heavy coated, and you get some dogs that barely have any hair on their body. So you can't really lump sum anything like that with an animal. All of them are different, just like people.
Sure. So, kind of back to the equipment. I know you talked about bumpers and having a check cord and all that stuff. So what on the bumpers, you got the colors you talked about, but there's 2-inch bumpers, 3-inch bumpers, there's rubber, there's canvas. You got dummies, you got like the Dawkins deadfall trainer dummies. When do you recommend switching off just a regular 2-inch bumper like you said you use, or does it matter which one you get?
It does matter. I'm a guy that enjoys something that I purchase that'll last forever. And so I stick with the 2-inch rubber bumpers. They're easy to haul around, they're easy to keep in your training bag. 3-inch bumpers to me take up a lot of room. The 2-inch bumpers are plenty. As far as, they got the rubber ducks, the True Birds, Avery makes, they're rubber, they last forever. I mean, those things, I got buckets full of them, big old tubs full of them around here we use every day, and we just beat them up and beat them up and beat them up. And they just last. And they don't absorb water, they don't stink, they don't have real hard heads or real hard feet to hurt the dog, especially like real high-drive dogs like Houston's got. If you get the wrong kind of rubber duck and that dog runs in on it and hits it too hard, he'll knock his canines out. And so you got to be a little bit careful. The Avery Bird's a fantastic product. And, I helped them with that thing a lot. We had a hand in that thing. We had along with the Hexagon bumpers. And I was just doing all that stuff off what I'd seen for the last 30 years of what I thought would work. Because I lost a lot of equipment due to stuff that doesn't work. It looks pretty good from the outside. I tell people there's stuff for selling and there's stuff for using. And all those products that Avery's got are stuff that I had a hand in, and every bit of that's made for selling and using, not just selling. As you well know, unfortunately, y'all sell a lot of stuff that's just made for selling as far as I'm concerned, but that's not one of them. Those are fantastic products that are made to use every day.
Oh, yeah. And so I guess that kind of wraps up all the questions we had, but and not to make this about myself, but just for anybody that's having trouble with their dog, I'll give you some scenarios, I guess, that I've had and how people should go about looking up how to fix it, or if it's just a trial and error. So I guess specifically was when I started doing force to pile, and he has no problem all the way out to 100 yards. But once I move the pile, he runs to where the old pile was. Is that a lining drill? Do people need to look at lining drills to fix that?
Well, force to a pile is only done to one position. Okay, that's all that is. Force to pile is an elementary drill that is to teach that dog to leave on command and go to a certain location. Note the word is a certain location. Now, once you get done with that, you go out to 100 yards. That's fantastic. That's all you need, okay? Now, the next thing you need to teach the dog to do is to actually start stopping en route and start getting that dog where he can go out halfway and stop on the whistle. And there's a long list of how you get that done. Then once you get that done, I'm assuming you've probably already done a little bit of casting where you can teach him to go right or teach him to go left. So once you get those factors done, then you teach the dog to run a land tee. Now, a land tee is basically, imagine we're in the middle of a baseball field and we're at home plate. A land tee is to teach the dog to go to second base, which you've already taught your dog to do. Let's just do it right there in the same spot, okay? So you'll be able to send your dog from home plate to second. That's all you need. And 100 yards actually is probably a little bit too far. I'd bring it into about 80, 85. Now, I want you to go out here to the pitcher's mound, and I want you to put your dog at the pitcher's mound, and I want you to start teaching that dog to go left and to go right on your command. So put him on the pitcher's mound facing home plate, throw you a couple bumpers over to the third base, and then put your arm out and tell him over and have him over to third base. Do the same thing to first base 2 or 3, 4 times. Then start mixing it up. Throw 2 bumpers to first, throw 2 bumpers to third, and then go to first base one time, bring him back to the center, line him back up, you walk back over, send him to third base, and vice versa, just keep going until he starts learning lefts and rights, okay? Then you start doing the back pile. What I mean by the back pile, I want you to put him in pitcher's mound, throw you 3 or 4 bumpers back there to second base, and I want you to tell him to go back. You back up halfway between the pitcher's mound and home plate and go back, put your arm above your head, and then have him, like you're somebody right above your head, and have him turn and go back to second base, if I'm making sense. Once you get that, that's called three-handed catch. Once you get that done, and he's coming back from that back pile, start blowing the whistle and stopping him at the pitcher's mound. And that's called fronting. And you get him stopping right there. Well, in due time here, after you get all this kind of going for a few days, you can actually start to move back between the pitcher's mound, excuse me, and home plate, and send him out and blow the whistle, and him actually stop right there on that same pitcher's mound. You can stop him every time, and then just get him over and tell him to go third. It's the coolest feeling in the world to watch a dog go out, stop, and then take a catch and go somewhere else. And then you put all this together. All that's in Duck Dog Basics 2 in my video series. It tells every bit about how to do that and the progression. But then once you get that land tee done, the next thing we do is what we call the 5-point, which if you're standing in the middle of the watch, it teaches the dog to go to 3, to go to 2, to go to 1, to go to 12, 11, 10, and 9. And that's a lining drill. And it's also a handling drill, but it's called the 5-point. But we do that after we do the land tee. But remember, with dog training, it's always been very peculiar to me that if you were building a house and the guys are out there framing your house or putting up the 2x4s today, you would never show up with a roll of wallpaper and want to start putting the wallpaper up that afternoon. Nobody would ever do that. It's almost like, well, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. But in dog training, people do it every single day. They want to do the upper level, the polish work, the fun stuff, the other stuff, real quick. Well, just remember there are a lot of steps that go into dog training. You need to find you actually a program to go by like mine with Duck Dog Basics. As you go through that, it's a progressive repetition, and it'll get you to where you want to be. But you've got to wait until the sheetrock and all the finish work's done, then you can put the wallpaper on, if you know what I'm saying. So it's a step-by-step process. And look, we're all guilty because we don't know the steps. But I'm going to tell you, when I first started training, there weren't any video series. There wasn't any apps out there, or video series, or YouTube deals. There wasn't any of that stuff. 30 years ago, it was every man for himself. He just had to figure it out. Today's world, the technology, all the equipment so much better. All the access that you guys have to training and techniques and theories and all that is just absolutely incredible. My suggestion, just pick one and run with it, and there's so many good ones out there today. There's so many people who have got involved in it and have so much knowledge. It's just amazing that who one is like me. I gave all that knowledge away for $25 a pop. You know what I mean? It's just amazing that that's going on today. But man, there's a lot of great knowledge out there for you guys to enjoy for a cheap amount of money. So get with one of them and get going and just take it slow, man. If you think he's just not getting it, just stay on that lesson until he does. Because it's so much fun. I mean, if that dog like you got, man, you take old Preacher out there and you watch him better every day, man, it's gonna fuel you. It's going to amp you up to get back out there the next day as soon as you get home from work to do that. No matter if it's half dark or not, you're going to get out there and put one more rep session on Preacher because you know he's going to get better again today.
Oh, yeah, and it's definitely something to remember. You can go back, too. So, sometimes I've had to go back and put the check cord back on him and go back to the heel and, sit and all the good basics that, sometimes they just forget to do. So going back was really big for me to make sure my training was progressing properly rather than trying to force him when he wasn't sitting square, things like that.
Hey, I guarantee my mom, 51 years old, my mom's still trying to fix some stuff she didn't get fixed when I was young.
Absolutely. This is a constant struggle. So.
And here's the thing, the reason those dogs are messing up is because of their desire to do what they love to do. So you got to respect that to a point. Although, they're messing up, like, hey, for the same reason they're messing up, the same reason they love old Preacher, and that's what you need to remember.
Yep. Well, Chris, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I think we're approaching about an hour here, so I know you've got a busy schedule, but I really thank you for jumping in and doing this for us today. I think it's going to benefit a lot of our listeners and our people that follow us on social media because we've got a huge waterfowl following, and if you like to hunt waterfowl, there's a good chance you like dogs or you have one yourself. So I just really appreciate your time today, man.
Hey, man, no problem. Y'all need me for anything, just give me a holler.
Yeah, and just a real quick shout-out here at the end of the podcast. What's the name of your kennel down in Arkansas there?
Web-Footed Kennels. It's WEBBFOOTED, Web-Footed. And Web-Footed Kennel, we're in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and we also have a Facebook page, Web-Footed Kennel as well.
All right, so people can check you out there, and if they ever need any training, or if they're looking to pick up some new dogs. I know it sounds like you've got quite the setup there with the amount of dogs that you have. So, all right, well, I appreciate it, man.
Yep. Thank you, Chris.
All right, that's a wrap.